My name is Aaron Morris, and I've never been the kind of person to believe in superstition. I grew up in a rational household. My father was a physics teacher, my mother a nurse, and every bump in the night had a perfectly logical explanation. Creaking floorboards, expansion, sudden cold, drafts, nightmares, just stress. I believed that right up until 3 weeks ago. I live alone in a quiet third-floor apartment in Minneapolis. It's a pre-war building with all the quirks you'd expect: rattling pipes, inconsistent heating, and a narrow hallway that always felt a few degrees colder than the rest of the place. My bedroom window faces a mostly empty lot with a street lamp that flickers exactly 3 times every night at 2:58 a.m. I only noticed that detail after the things began. It started with the mirror. It wasn't always there. I found it one evening, outside someone's trash pile near the alley. A tall vintage thing with an ornate brass frame cracked slightly at the top right corner but still elegant. I remember hesitating, but there was something about it, like it didn't belong out there. It was too beautiful to be garbage. I brought it up to my apartment, cleaned it carefully, and hung it opposite the foot of my bed. That was my first mistake. The second was not removing it the night I woke up to see myself still lying in bed. While I was sitting up, I know how that sounds. Maybe it was sleep paralysis, I thought that too. But the reflection was off. It wasn't just me sitting up in the glass, it was me, but blinking slower, moving wrong, like the timing was just a little delayed. But the worst part? The expression. While I stared slack-jawed in the dark, my reflection was smiling, barely, a flicker at the corner of the mouth. And then, like it realized I was watching, it went completely still. That night, I didn't sleep. I tried to ignore it for a few days, told myself it was my mind playing tricks. I even laughed about it to a coworker, left out the creepy part, of course. But each night after that, I began to feel it, a pressure, like something in the room shifted when the clock neared 3 o'clock a.m. Not always loud, just heavy, like a weight sitting on the edges of my bed that disappeared the moment I turned on the light. The real horror began the night I decided to test it. I set my phone on a tripod across the room, hit record. I made sure the mirror was in frame, my whole bed, in fact. I fell asleep that night clutching a flashlight like a child. When I woke up, the flashlight was on the floor. My sheets were tangled around my legs. The mirror looked normal, but the video, I watched it before work, already on edge. For the first 2 hours, nothing happened. I shifted in my sleep, mumbled once or twice, but right at 2:59, the screen flickered slightly, and then, at exactly 3 o'clock, something moved in the reflection. Not in the room, just in the glass. It was me, except it wasn't. I never sat up during the recording, but in the reflection, I did, slowly, and the way I moved jerky, uncertain, like a puppet learning its limbs. It looked directly into the camera, and smiled, and then, it got out of bed. In the reflection, I stood. My real body didn't move an inch. The reflection turned toward the room, and began walking out of frame, toward the edge, like it was leaving the mirror. I stopped the video. I couldn't breathe. I deleted it, but it didn't stop there. That night, the air in my room felt electric, like the charge before lightning. The street lamp outside flickered 3 times. I lay frozen under my blanket, eyes fixed on the mirror, and then, movement. Something shifted in the glass. It was me, but this time, I wasn't alone. I wanted to believe it was just my mind again, some holdover hallucination from the video I shouldn't have watched. But it wasn't just the reflection this time. I could feel the air shift, like the molecules themselves were thickening. The hair on my arms rose, my chest tightened, and then, the blanket slid off my legs. Not yanked, not pulled violently, just slowly, like fingers pinching the edge and drawing it down with methodical calm. I bolted upright, heart punching my ribs. The room was dim. The mirror glowed faintly with the pale orange light from the street lamp, and in it, I saw my reflection, sitting up in bed, except I was already sitting. I blinked hard. The mirror me didn't blink. It stared. Then it turned its head, just slightly, toward the left corner of the mirror, like it was looking at something just out of frame. I followed its gaze and saw nothing, just the shadowed corner where my dresser stood. But my reflection began to smile again. It was wider this time, unnatural, teeth just a little too many. The smile kept stretching until the eyes began to water, like the skin around the mouth couldn't decide where to stop. Then I heard it, a whisper, not a voice I recognized, but it came from behind the mirror, or from inside it. 3 words dragged across my spine like rusted nails. You're still sleeping. I froze. My mouth opened but no sound came out. I reached for my phone. No signal. Just a gray bar and a spinning icon. I tried to move, but something in my chest told me not to stand. Not yet. Then I saw it. A third reflection. Far behind me in the mirror near the closet door there was something else. Not a person. Not fully. Just the shape of one. It looked like someone standing perfectly still, only visible in the mirror, though my room behind me was empty. It had no face, just a black silhouette with a faint outline, like it was painted onto the glass. But I could feel it watching me. And then it moved, not fast, not crawling or lunging. It glitched, one moment at the back of the reflection, next moment closer. Each second it jumped forward, no in-between frames, just static blur. Then proximity. And for flickers, it was right behind me. I turned around, swinging wildly. Nothing, but in the mirror, it was inches from me, towering, breathing slow and deep. Its shoulders heaving like it had lungs, but no mouth. And then the whisper again, inside my skull this time, not my ears. You let me in. I snapped. I grabbed the mirror off the wall and slammed it face down onto the floor. The crash echoed through the room, glass splintering in all directions. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat against the wall with the lights on until morning. When I finally left my apartment that day, I threw every broken shard into the dumpster behind the building. I salted the window frame. I even looked up mirror folklore, old rituals, warning signs, banshees, doppelgängers. I did everything. But that night, when I turned off the lights, I still saw my reflection, perfect, unbroken, staring back at me from the black screen of my unplugged TV. And then it blinked. Not when I blinked, after, out of sync, like it was waiting for its own moment. And that smile, slow, spreading, began again. My name is Jocelyn, and I grew up in a house that never made sense. Not in the way it was built, or where it was placed that all seemed normal. It was the way it felt. Like something about it was off by just 1 or 2 degrees. Like if you blinked too slowly, you'd see it for what it really was underneath. It was an old Victorian on the edge of town, left to my mom after my grandfather passed. We moved in when I was 11. I remember walking through the place for the first time and having this immediate reaction, like my stomach dipped, like I'd just missed a step on the stairs. Something about the upstairs hallway made the air heavy. You could breathe, but only halfway. The weirdest part of the house was the guest bedroom, second door to the right, upstairs. Everyone called it the mirror room, even before we moved in. Not because it was full of mirrors or anything, just one. A huge full-length antique mirror bolted to the wall directly across from the bed. You couldn't move it. I tried. My dad tried. Even when they brought a guy in to look at it, he said it was embedded into the wood frame itself, like it belonged there. I never slept in that room. None of us did. But we never got rid of the mirror either. My mom said it was too expensive to remove without damaging the wall, so it stayed, facing the bed, waiting. Years later, when I was 22, I moved back in for a while after my boyfriend and I broke up. My old room had become storage, so I slept in the mirror room. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I told myself I was older now, rational, grounded. That lasted 3 nights. It started with the ticking. It wasn't from a clock. We didn't keep clocks in that room. It was subtle, faint, like a small nail tapping gently against glass. It came every night around the same time, just after 3 a.m. Tick, tick, tick. Always 3 in a row. Then silence. I assumed it was the old wood settling, or something outside. But one night, I sat up the moment I heard it and saw something I couldn't explain. There was a faint smudge in the mirror. It looked like condensation at first, like breath fog. But the room wasn't cold, and it wasn't fading. It stayed in place, about chest height on the glass. So I stood up and leaned in. It was a handprint, not mine. It was smaller, child-sized, but elongated, too narrow. The fingers touched the edge of the mirror's frame, as if pressing out from the inside. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, it was gone. By the 5th night, the smudge came back. This time, I saw it appear in real time. I was lying still, eyes half open, when the mirror surface warped, just slightly, like a ripple on a calm lake. And then the handprint slowly bloomed on the inside of the glass like something exhaled. Against it, tick, tick, tick. I remember whispering to myself, "Stop looking," but I didn't, because for a second, I thought I saw a face, pressed just barely into the surface, flat, watching, and then it backed away. No footsteps, no shadow, just the faint shimmer of presence retreating into the dark, vanishing into whatever cold vacuum existed behind that pane of glass. I told my mom. She said it was probably a dream. So the next night, I stayed awake. I brought a flashlight, a notebook, even my phone to record it. Nothing happened. Not until I blinked, and in that fraction of darkness, the mirror changed. The reflection no longer matched the room. My bed was there, the door, the furniture, but in the reflection, the corner of the room, the far right one, was missing. It just wasn't there. No right angle, no wall intersection, just a slow dissolving gradient into nothing, like the room had been scooped out on that side and replaced with fog. And in that fog, something moved, not fast, not threatening, just pacing, like a figure half wrapped in vapor, circling slowly, watching me from that broken corner of unreality. The room I sat in was still whole, but the reflection had a wound in it, a hole that bled shapes and whispers. That's when I heard the voice for the first time. It didn't come from behind me. It came from beneath my bed. 3 words, the same as the handprint. "Night, you see it." I bolted out of the room, slammed the door, and didn't go back for 3 days. I even convinced myself again that it was stress, maybe even sleep paralysis. Maybe I'd fallen asleep with my eyes open. It didn't matter, until the night came home late from work and walked past the door and heard breathing. The door was slightly ajar. No one was supposed to be home. I leaned in, listened, just faint, rhythmic inhaling, like someone standing too close to a mic. It was so soft I thought maybe it was the wind, until I whispered, "Hello," and the breathing stopped, followed by, "We were waiting." The words didn't echo. They didn't bounce around the hall or bleed out of some hidden speaker. They came from inside the room. Something about the way they were spoken, low, rasped, unhurried, didn't sound like a voice trying to be heard. It sounded like a voice that had always been there, whispering long before I ever arrived. I should have run. Instead, I stood there, halfway across the threshold, heart punching against my ribs, waiting for a second voice, a laugh, footsteps, anything to break the silence. But nothing came, just stillness. And then the slow, creaking sound of the mirror settling, as though its frame had slightly shifted, like it was breathing too, stretching its corners. I reached for the door handle to close it, but I froze. The mirror, even from the hallway, I could see it. There was something standing in front of it, not a reflection, not me. Something else. It wasn't in the room, but it was in the mirror, pale-skinned, slightly hunched, head tilted too far to the side like a broken marionette. No features, just a face smoothed over like porcelain, with 2 shallow indentations where the eyes should be. Like whatever it was had heard what faces were supposed to look like but had never actually seen one, and it was facing the door, facing me. I slammed the door shut and ran downstairs. Slept in the living room with all the lights on like a scared child. The next morning, I tried to make sense of it all. I told myself it was a lucid dream, a half-sleep hallucination. But deep down, I knew better, because something had changed. Since that night, the mirror stopped reflecting correctly. It was subtle at first. The way it caught light differently, how objects seemed just slightly out of proportion. The bed would look longer than it was. My body in the mirror would be tilted inward, like it was being drawn into the surface. But the worst part, it started watching me during the day. I'd walk past the open door mid-morning and catch a flicker, just a flicker of movement, a twitch, a nod, something inside the mirror shifting a few seconds after I was already gone, like it was reacting, studying, preparing. I tried to cover it once, just threw a heavy sheet over the frame, taped it to the wall, came back an hour later, and the sheet was on the floor, crumpled in a perfect circle beneath it. The tape was still attached to the wall, not ripped, just peeled away carefully, as if someone hadn't done it inch by inch. I didn't try again. Instead, I started sleeping on the couch. I told my mom the guest bed was too stiff, too creaky. She believed me, but every night, I could hear the mirror room upstairs settling, breathing, whispering things too soft to understand but too persistent to ignore. One night, I made a mistake. I came home after a long shift, completely exhausted. My phone was dead. My bag was soaked from rain. I just wanted to sleep. The living room was a mess. My little cousin had visited and left toys everywhere, and the thought of cleaning before resting was unbearable. So I went upstairs. I told myself I'd just lie down in the mirror room for an hour, 2 max, just long enough to close my eyes. The mirror was pitch black when I entered. My own reflection didn't even show, just a void where my body should have been. I lay on the bed sideways, facing the window, refusing to even glance toward the glass. And eventually exhaustion won, but sometime around 3:08 am, I woke up. I didn't open my eyes. I didn't move. Something was standing next to the bed. I could feel it. That silent pressure, like when someone's behind you and their presence distorts the air. But this was colder, thinner, like it was made of something that didn't belong in this world. And then I heard it, the sound of skin dragging against glass, fingernails gliding in slow circles, a whisper against the surface of the mirror, just inches from where I slept. I still hadn't opened my eyes. I couldn't, but I felt it lean closer. Its breath wasn't warm. It was like fog rolling through an open freezer, clammy and electric and wrong. It hovered just above my ear and said, "You sleep outside your body." I opened my eyes and saw it in the reflection, standing behind me. In the room. It was no longer trapped inside the mirror. Its arms were long, stretching past its knees. Its head was twitching in small, sudden jerks, like it didn't quite know how to hold its shape. And its skin, gray, wet, pulsing just faintly beneath the surface, looked almost translucent. But the worst part, its mouth. It had one now, thin, torn, pulled back into a smile that didn't end. It leaned closer in the reflection while the real room behind me remained still. "You left your reflection behind," it hissed. "And now, it's mine. My name is Eric Molina, and I haven't slept in almost 4 days, not properly at least. I doze off here and there, 10 minutes on the bathroom floor, a few seconds sitting upright in a chair, but never long enough to dream, never long enough for it to find me again." I know how that sounds. Sleep deprivation makes you paranoid, hallucinations, irrational thoughts. I've read the forums. I know the science, but this isn't that. This started 2 weeks ago, the night I moved into my new apartment. I'd gotten a great deal of sublease from a guy who'd apparently left the country in a hurry. The place was fully furnished, dirt cheap, and 2 blocks from the train. It should have been perfect, but there was one thing I didn't notice until the movers left: a mirror. 6 feet tall, frame like weathered bone, wedged into the far wall of the bedroom. It looked old, antique store old, the kind of thing that felt like it had seen more than one lifetime. It was bolted directly into the wall, no backing, no screws I could reach. Whoever put it there didn't want it removed. I tried to ignore it at first. I even convinced myself it added character, but something about it unsettled me from day one. The reflection was always slightly delayed, just by a millisecond, but enough that I noticed, and my reflection never blinked, not unless I did it twice. It sounds stupid, right? I'd wave my hand, it would wave. I'd raise a finger, it would follow. But if I blinked once, it wouldn't mimic it. Not unless I did it again deliberately, like it needed confirmation, like it had to make sure I was real before it copied me. I started sleeping with my back to the mirror, pillow wedged against the headboard so I didn't accidentally roll over and see it. That worked for the first few nights, until I woke up at 3:11 am and realized I was facing it again, not turned in my sleep. I was standing right in front of it, just inches from the glass, eyes wide open, staring directly into the reflection. But I didn't remember getting out of bed, didn't remember moving. It felt like something had picked me up and placed me there. I backed away slowly, got back into bed, pulled the covers over my head and waited for daylight. The next night, I locked my bedroom door. I even stacked a chair under the knob, set up my phone to record, just to prove to myself it was all in my head. I watched the footage the next morning. At exactly 3:08 am, I sat up. Not suddenly, not like someone jolting awake. Slowly, calmly, like I'd been waiting. I turned my head toward the mirror and smiled. Not a normal smile, not mine. Too wide, too long, like my face had forgotten how much was too much. Then I stood up, walked straight to the mirror, and just stood there for 20 minutes, still smiling. I didn't move. I didn't blink. And the mirror? The reflection wasn't smiling. It looked at me, tilted its head once, then leaned forward just slightly while my real body remained perfectly still. That's when the feed cut out. I didn't move the rest of that night, just stayed there, watching the mirror watch me. The chair under the doorknob hadn't been touched. The lock was still turned, and yet somehow I had stood, crossed the room, and stood there, while something in the mirror stayed behind. I tried to be rational. I told myself it was sleepwalking, that the reflection wasn't smiling, that maybe I'd imagined it, that the recording had glitched because of bad Wi-Fi or a loose cable or some compression artifact. Anything that would let me keep pretending I was safe. But something changed that day. Something subtle. When I passed the mirror during daylight hours, I stopped recognizing myself. It looked like me, same hair, same jawline, same hoodie I'd thrown on that morning, but the expression was just a little off. Like he was holding something back. Like he knew something I didn't. Worse, it started mimicking me too soon. Like it was guessing what I'd do next. I lifted my hand to scratch my temple and the reflection was already doing it. I blinked and the reflection finished blinking first. That night, I covered the mirror with a blanket, taped it down across the top and sides with duct tape, even propped a bookshelf in front of it just to be sure, and I slept on the couch. I didn't wake up at 3:08 am. I didn't wake up at all until I heard something crash in the bedroom around 4:30. The bookshelf.id had been shoved aside, not fallen, not tipped, just moved, as if someone had neatly slid it away. The blanket was on the floor, tape still attached. The mirror was completely uncovered, waiting for me. I told myself I needed help. I called a sleep specialist, booked the first available appointment. She suggested I install a motion-activated camera, just to get some data. That night, I set up one facing the mirror, one facing me on the couch. At 3:06 am, the feed began to flicker, both cameras, just flashes at first, like a bulb struggling to turn on, then black, for 12 minutes. When the feed resumed, I was still on the couch lying on my back, eyes closed, but standing beside the mirror was me, not sleepwalking me, fully alert, dressed, awake, and staring back at the reflection, a full 30 feet from where I lay. I should have burned the mirror right then, but I didn't. I hesitated. I think on some level, I was curious. What was it trying to do? What did it want? That curiosity, that mistake cost me everything. The next night, I fell asleep on the couch again, this time with every light on in the apartment, no blankets, sitting upright, and yet, I woke up in the dark, not dim, pitch black, like the electricity had been sucked out of the walls, and I wasn't on the couch anymore. I was in bed, facing the mirror, only it wasn't me in the bed. I was in the mirror. It took me a full 10 seconds to realize it. I could see my apartment, my real one, the real walls, the real bed, but I was staring out from inside the glass, and in the bed, staring back, was the reflection, smiling, breathing, real. I pounded the glass, screamed, but there was no sound, just cold, a cold so deep it made my teeth ache. Then the thing in the bed sat up and blinked. Once, a second passed, then it blinked again and smiled wider, just like I used to. I don't know how long I was trapped in that glass. Time worked differently. There was no sound, no warmth, no sensation of breath or blood, just the still, suffocating pressure of being watched. Not by the thing in my bed, though he kept glancing up at the mirror like he knew I was inside it, but by something deeper, something behind the reflection. Like I wasn't alone in there, like the glass itself was alive and hungry. I don't remember falling asleep. I remember blinking, and then I was back on the couch, soaked in sweat, shivering. The mirror still stood in my room, but the bed sheets were wrinkled, like someone had been lying in them. Someone heavier than me. I didn't sleep the next night, or the next. The circles under my eyes darkened. My skin began to crack at the edges. I couldn't eat. I couldn't leave the apartment. Every time I looked at the door, I saw my reflection, staring back at me from the hallway mirror, just standing there, like it was daring me to try. When I finally got the courage to throw a blanket over that hallway mirror, I saw something that chilled my blood. The reflection didn't copy me. It kept staring straight through the blanket, like it didn't need eyes to see me anymore. That night I dreamt of the mirror again, but this time I wasn't trapped inside it. I was outside watching the new me live. He laughed on the phone, ate dinner at my desk, played music I never listened to. He danced, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this chance. He wasn't just imitating me, he was replacing me. I woke up screaming, but it wasn't me who screamed. The voice came from the mirror, and it was still echoing when I opened my eyes. The next day, I tried to break it. I grabbed a hammer, held it with both hands, and swung as hard as I could. The moment the metal hit the glass, something pushed back. I don't know how else to describe it. Not like resistance, like a recoil, like the mirror hit me in return. I stumbled back, dropped the hammer. My nose bled for hours, but the glass, not a single crack. No splinter, no scratch, just my reflection, holding the hammer and smiling, mocking me. That night, I tried covering every reflective surface in the apartment. Not just the mirror, the TV, the phone screen, even the kettle. I tossed my phone in the freezer and taped cardboard over the microwave. But the reflections, they started to follow me in other places. In the window, I saw myself standing outside, staring in the faucet. I saw my eyes staring up from the drain. I smashed the bathroom mirror with a crowbar. It screamed, not loud, just a low, choking sound like someone gasping their last breath inside a coffin. But it worked. The bathroom stayed quiet after that, until 3:08 am. I heard a knock on the bathroom door, 3 slow, deliberate taps. I didn't answer. Then I heard my voice, from inside. I'm still in here. I stood there in the hallway, staring at the closed bathroom door. I'm still in here, it whispered again, only this time. It wasn't even trying to sound like me. It was off, like someone trying to imitate my voice through cracked vocal cords and broken lungs. Like it remembered what I sounded like from inside the glass, but forgot what it meant to be human. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The hallway light flickered. Then the door creaked open, just a sliver. And from the dark crack in the doorway, I saw a hand, pale, damp. The fingers were too long, like they'd been stretched to match my own, but were missing something vital, something real. It gripped the edge of the doorframe like it was trying to pull itself back into the world. I ran, didn't even think about it. I bolted down the hallway, slammed the front door open, and sprinted barefoot into the cold night air. I didn't stop running until I reached the 24-hour gas station 3 blocks down, collapsing near the checkout counter in a mess of sweat and breathless terror. The guy behind the counter didn't ask questions. He just gave me a bottle of water and let me sit there until sunrise. But something strange happened when the sun came up, when the light poured through the big gas station windows and bounced off the fridges and metal racks and glass doors. I didn't reflect. Not in the cooler, not in the coffee pot, nothing. But behind me, in the freezer door, I saw my other self, grinning, mouth moving in reverse, not forming words but unmaking them, erasing them. I haven't been back to my apartment since. I stay in motels now, cheap ones, no mirrors, no windows near the bed. I tape black paper over anything reflective. I don't carry a phone. I check the microwave before I use it. I sleep in 20-minute bursts, never once past 3 am. But no matter how far I go, or how careful I am, sometimes I still see him, on a car bumper, in a glass door, in someone's sunglasses. He always looks just like me, except for one thing, he never blinks. He just watches, waiting, and I know one night, when I'm too tired to fight it, too weak to resist, I'll blink, and when I open my eyes he'll be here, and I'll be the one trapped on the other side.